Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 5 in social problems. Sorry, I'm a little sick. You may hear it come through. I have like another toddler-induced illness because it just happens so much in these early years when you have a kid. Um, so I was looked through this morning. It looks like just about everybody had submitted their essay from last week. I haven't gotten a chance to review them, but they looked pretty good. Just looking through, just as a cursory look, I'm glad to see that I didn't have to bug very many, really almost nobody. Um, Moving on, as you see, all of these things are all kind of connected to each other. I think particularly now, like crime in society, social control, physical mental health. These are kind of like society problems. They're obviously like created and applied to individuals, but they're things that are kind of like um, social society wide. And I feel like the rest of these issues are very much um, individual kind of things. Education is like I don't know. I guess that's still kind of like a society wide problem. But it does affect us individuals. You know, like where you go to school and what community you grow up in and whatever. And it's really interesting. Now our oldest is 3 years old, the one that gets us sick all the time, and we're starting to get ready to think about where to put him into school. And we both, my wife and I, went to public schools, and we're very committed. You know, we're really like that's what we want to do. But neither of us went to Detroit public schools, which is where we live in the city of Detroit. And it's very interesting going from we both went to suburban school districts. She went to Anchor Bay, which some of you may be familiar with, out there in Macomb County, and I went to Livonia schools. So we're like East Side, West Side love story, I guess. Um, you know, when you're in the suburban districts, you just go to the school. You just go to like that school that's down the street from you, and that's you go to the high school, you go to whatever. And in the city of Detroit, you and we've been going on like school tours, going to look at all of these different schools. I know in some of the bigger suburban communities, there's like a charter schools that are popping up now, so you do have a little bit more options. In the like within it, it's not so much like you just have like the one school. But when I was growing up in the 80s, it was really just you have the one school, you send your kid there, and then there's the one high school, and based on where you live in the neighborhood or in the city, that's where you send your kid to that school, you know. And it's very unequal. I mean, like I went to Livonia public schools, but I lived in government housing that happened to be in this very good school district. So there's like a large diversity within the school, and then within the region. Like I was part of like the poor kid group in my school, but I actually lived in Westland and I went to Livonia public schools because that's just how like the school districts worked. But then I had friends that were in Westland public schools, and that was much more like the kind of socioeconomic status of where my family was. Like there were some middle class families, but there was a lot more poor families. There was like a lot more trailer parks, a lot more government housing, a lot of low income housing, stuff like that. Um, and then it's wild. Like as I got a little bit older into high school, and I started to meet kids that went to like Birmingham public schools, West Bloomfield public schools, and it just totally blew my mind seeing how big of a difference it was for these kids going in those school districts and like the amenities that they had available to them and like the just like the sort of opportunities that were available to them within the schools. I'm sure you all have your own stories and experiences of like what you went through going through the public school program that you had gone through. And some of you I know are high school students, and that you are still you're doing the I forget the dual enrollment program, which is so cool, and I'm so thankful that you guys are here in this class, and that I get to have this little bit of time to talk about these issues and to like curate all of this stuff for you to think about, because I think these are really so important. All these issues that are being covered in like just like when the older generation is like retiring and whatever. Now this is sort of like me and my cohort's problem to worry about all of these issues. Pretty soon it's going to be all of you younger people's problem to worry about all of these issues. And like we get to pass you the broken torch of like, because I don't see these intractable problems in education getting really fixed anytime soon. I feel like there are some fundamental problems, like like sort of the inequality in the education that's sort of built into the education system, like what I've been talking about. And then I think there's also just a devaluing of the education system, like in terms of like how much teachers get paid and how much administrators of schools get paid. And I feel like as a society, we don't value teachers and the education system the way that we ought to. Um, and not to mention again, just the like what students are bringing with them to school too. Like that's kind of the most striking thing to me. Like my wife was part of this program called City Year many years ago. And if you're not familiar with City Year, basically they take young college graduates and you go and work like a year or two in Detroit public schools as like what they call a near peer mentor. So you're in like your early 20s and you're mentoring and helping out like high school juniors and seniors, and you're very kind of close in age. Like these kids are like 16, 17, you're like 22, 23 something, so you're not really that. It's kind of like an older cousin sort of relationship. And the idea is to help these kids like finish school, and most of them are like kind of tough schools that have kind of high dropout rates and things like that. um and yeah, just some of the things that she saw, and you don't really realize, and I remember this from when I was a kid, like but you don't realize how much when kids are growing up in poverty and coming from tough neighborhoods and tough communities, how much of that comes with them into the classroom. Like they come to school hungry, they come to school tired, they come to school with a lot on their mind because they're seeing a lot of things at home or in their neighborhood, and things like that. And it's a really difficult position for the educators to be in, that you have these kids that have so much going on, and then like in immigrant communities they're kind of always with one eye thinking about like either their own immigration status or their parents' immigration status. And in particular with what's going on right now, as some of you may have seen, like these crackdowns in Detroit public schools. I don't know if you all saw, like last week there was a student walkout in Canton of all places. I was like, I couldn't believe that this happened in Canton. That students, the principal of the school had emailed all the staff about how they were going to cooperate with ICE, and that somehow got leaked amongst the students, and the students themselves organized a walkout to protest the cooperation with ICE, which is just like incredible. So I think these are like a lot of very complicated social issues that all end up making their way into the classroom. Poverty, immigration, crime, all of those things like make their way into this like little microcosm of the classroom. And then on top of it all, I'm very aware that for many of you that are traditional college students, you are part of that cohort that had the COVID high school experience that totally like threw everything into a whirlwind chaos of a whole different sort. And then like in addition to all of that, there's also like all of the issues with higher ed, the cost of higher ed especially, and just how insanely expensive it is to go to college. um it's a lot to think about. And I I'm if any of you are going into education, I really commend you, and I think it's an excellent career choice to go into. I know that, like I said, the pay isn't the best in the world, but also it's not terrible. It's like pretty livable in some communities at least. And I would really like recommend thinking about what are your options to start in the classroom and then to move on and to grow your career outside of the class, as in like moving into administration or curriculum design or something like that. That's what my sister taught for like 15 years or 20, a really long time. And then now she's a principal in downriver somewhere. I think it's like Taylor or something like that. So anyway, there's a lot of things to think about. Um, I hope you find this material interesting. If you have any questions as you're going along, feel free to message me once again. And I hope you're all staying warm. I know it's finally going to be like above freezing. I saw this morning it was like almost 20 days since it's been above freezing, and I feel like it's really taking its toll on all of us. So, um, hope you all are doing good out there, and I will talk to you soon. See you later. Bye.